Hey guys, how we doing? Welcome to Personal Development Hacks. I'm Todd, and I'll be the host for the show. But if you ever sat around and wondered, kind of like, I want to do this and I want to do that, or I want to look like this, or I want to have this type of relationship, and you don't do anything about it, that's what we're going to cover in this episode: is the why not. So we've already covered the what, which is the ultimately the goal that you set, and we've talked about kind of how you go about that and how you set it, and thinking for your lifetime. And then we've also dealt with the why, which is the biggest category there can be. Is why is it important to you? Who is it important to? Finding your inspiration instead of just your motivation, so that you don't break that promise to yourself again. This episode we're going to cover the why not. So that's in a couple different aspects. Um, One is, if you've done something before, set a resolution, made a promise to yourself, set a goal, it's on your bucket list or your vision board or whatever, and you've identified, like, I'm I'm going to do this time. What happened? Did you not get started? Did you start and then something happened? Um, did you get derailed somewhere along the process and lost sight of ultimately what your goal was? So there's the beginning part of, why haven't you done something before? If you've tried it, well, that's better than most. A lot of people, unfortunately, they'll have these ideas and these dreams and these goals, and things and places that they want, and fitness and relationships, and they don't do anything about it. At least if you've tried, now we just need to refine that process. But when you get to this part, you really need to think about, like, what prevented me from seeing this through in the past, and come up with a game plan as to how you're not going to fall into those same pitfalls again this time around. Um, Stuff happens. It could be, life happens. Obviously, if it's a emergency situation or something kind of drastic has happened, yeah, certainly take care of whatever you need to take care of. I'm not saying that, but if it's just normal everyday life, like, you got a different project at work, or um, your kids are kind of pulling in a couple different directions, just have that plan ahead of time as to how you're going to handle what derailed you the last time. If you never started the last time, then you need to ask the question, well, why didn't I ever start anything? If I desire these things and I have these goals, what's prevented me from getting there in the past? Or what's prevented me from trying in the past? Typically, there's a couple different reasons that spark people to, all of a sudden, kind of put them into action and look for ways to get things done. Um, could be a birthday. All of a sudden, you look up and you're like, "Oh my God, I'm 40 now," and that realization that you're 40, and you look at your back at your life up till that point, and all those dreams that you've had and all those things, how many of those have you accomplished? What's still to accomplish? And where are you at in that? It could be something as simple as a friend or a neighbor or someone comes back from a vacation to Hawaii or the beach or to Mexico to see the Mayan ruins or something along those lines. And you realize that that's something that you'd really like to see, and yet you have no plan for it. And that typically will spark people into, okay, I need to figure out a way to get this done. And like we've talked about, putting it on a bucket list, putting it on a vision board, that's great to have those things out in front of you. But without action, they just become dream boards and dream lists. And Powerball is not a plan, right? You need to put into action how you're going to accomplish those things that you ultimately want to, and identify what's held you back in the past. If it's a fitness goal, is it that you started out a program and then it got hard, or you didn't see progress fast enough, and so instead of pushing through, you just thought, I'll wait till next year. I got the holidays coming up. I got birthday coming up. I got X, Y, and Z out there, so I can wait. Well, you're doomed to fail at that point, right? So again, have a plan in place to say, okay, if I start this on January 15th or April, whatever it is, 16th, 17th, whatever it is, if I start this today, I know in a month I've got a birthday party that has already been planned. I've got, kids event. I got X, Y, and Z. That's fine. You can still attend and do all those things, obviously. Just have in place a plan for how you're going to handle it when those things come up, so that and you've purposely planned, like, this kid's birthday, this is my day of rest. And I'm not going to go out and eat, a large cake by myself. I'm not going to go crazy, but I know that that's the day that I'm going to take out and set aside and say, this was pre-planned. Because then you're actually in control of how you're planning out your journey to ultimately that fitness. And same thing with holidays and stuff like that. Progress, if you're truly doing it with lifetime in mind and getting fit, not just losing weight, it is going to take time. We talked about it. There is no magic pill. You can go and hire a trainer and do all sorts of stuff, and you might see some quick results, but that's not ultimately where you want to go. If your goal is just to fit into a certain suit by a certain day, that's not really like a goal. That's just kind of I need to do this because of this one specific reason. And we're not dealing with that. We're dealing with goals and things that will impact your entire life, the rest of your life, in a positive way, and actually make an impact on how you go about each and every single day. Okay. If it's like a wealth goal, and again, it's acquiring wealth, not necessarily just making more money, because if your goal is just about making more money, then your secondary becomes, well, what am I going to do with it? And that maybe becomes your ultimate goal is, I want to buy a boat. I want to take all the family on a vacation or something like that. But if it's about acquiring wealth, that takes time. So be patient, have a plan in place, and have the discipline to stick to what that plan ultimately is and what you've laid out in front of yourself for how you're going to get from where you currently are, not to the end, but every day you're just going to get a little bit closer, 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 closer. Okay. As well as going into it in terms of saying, okay, this is what has prevented me in the past. Look a little bit deeper. Is this a brand new desire that you have? Or is it something that has always kind of been in the back of your mind and you just haven't taken action on it? And the reason that's important is if it's brand new, then you not only need to think about in general what has held you back or what has prevented you from kind of going all the way and achieving that ultimate goal. But if it's brand new, it's also trying to identify, well, what am I going to face? And just brainstorming and just thinking about, okay, I've never done online stuff before, but I know it's a great secondary income stream, and I've taken classes on it, or I'm enrolled with X, Y, and Z, and they're teaching me about affiliate marketing or X, Y, and Z, whatever ultimately it is. Okay, you've got the plan, you've got the training, but what potentially sits out there that could derail this this path and this secondary income or this wealth building thing or whatever that you're looking at. So it's looking at your current and it's looking at your future. Okay, and just coming up with and identifying exactly what those things are that you could face or that you have faced in the past. I apologize, but what are those things that you've either dealt with before that have prevented you from making a decision and prevented you from making the progress in your life that you ultimately desire? Or if it's something new, okay, what's preventing it this time? Okay. And just anything goes at this point. If you think that it's a 1% chance that something could come up that could derail it, just write it down and come up with a game plan. Obviously, there's a few different ways that you can deal with, we'll call them roadblocks for the time being, but when they do come up, there's a couple different ways that you can kind of deal with them. One is you just keep going and you break through it. It could be, God, I've been walking all this time every day religiously, and I'm on day 13, and I know this is not a planned day off, but I'm tired, but I'm going anyway. And maybe you choose a different route, or you do the same route, but you do it backwards or something like that, or you shorten it up. Whatever it is, you identified that it's a roadblock and you just broke through it and you said, no, not this time around. I'm going to keep pushing forward. And my step today forward might be a little bit smaller than it's been, but it's still forward. That's the most important thing, right? Is just always be moving forward. Another thing that could come up, like in terms of like the roadblock, it presents itself, is you find a way over it. You adjust and you just kind of say, you know what, I'm not dealing with that right now. That same scenario where you maybe that roadblock showed up and you had to break through it, and you broke through it by adjusting a little bit of your plan but kept moving forward. Maybe you just go over it and you say, no, whatever my why is, my family, my friends, my parents, my whatever, coworkers, the way I feel, that's my inspiration. I'm going to do this today. I know that I've got a planned day off 2 days from now, so today is not my day to do anything besides what I've been doing and what I'm pushing towards. Also, obviously, you could adjust and sidestep it. If the roadblock presents itself, and let's just keep on the same theme. Like, say it's the roadblock comes up and it's like, oh God, I'm tired and I don't feel that well and it's crappy outside and I've got a planned day off in 2 days and I don't feel like going out and doing the full course. Okay. And I don't feel like adjusting or kind of, uh, changing it anyway. But I need to get something done. Then you sidestep it and you're like, you know what? Today I'm going to just do a workout or whatever ultimately is at home. And I'm going to take something I saw online, like a 20-minute, half hour, quick workout that focuses its attention on X, Y, and Z places in your body. That's a way that you can continue moving forward, adjust your path for that single day, and then the next day you wake up, the sun's out, you feel better, you get back on doing what you were doing. Okay. So there's different ways that you'll deal with different roadblocks as they present themselves. And let's not kid each other, they will present themselves, especially if you're really going for that goal that's going to impact your life, the rest of your life, and not just the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. The other thing now is once you get into this, we've already identified what we think or what we know prevented it from happening and prevented us from taking action prior. And we've conquered those and we've figured out, like, not this time. I've found my inspiration and I'm not going to let my kids down. Um, you know, I've got a plan laid out. I'm going to stick to it. And I know that this time is for real because I've gone about this the right way and I have the true reason why this is important. Everyone's involved. My kids are cheering me on. Okay, I'm, that roadblock that typically has held me back in the past isn't going to hold me back this time. And then you need to work on, as those roadblocks, what you foresee as what has kind of hiccuped you in along your path. That same flight that we talked about from LA to Miami, that's only going straight at takeoff and landing. Those pilots are course correcting the entire time. They're not, for lack of a better term, they're not actually flying the airplane. They're just making those course corrections to keep that line where they're supposed to be and stay on that line. So you need to treat this the same way, is just you're making course corrections all along the way because it's a long journey. It's not like I need to focus for the next 2 months to get X, Y, and Z done. This is the rest of my life. And when I'm 70, I want to be able to be like, no, I can still go and do what I want to do. Or I've got my wealth and everything to the point to where I can comfortably be on a beach somewhere and not have a care in the world. Or I can take my significant other and we can go travel Europe or, go stay in the ice hotel or something, whatever ultimately it is. But that's because it's planned for your lifetime, not for the short time. Okay. Other things that you'll see is, like, as you go along this, as much as you plan, as much as you think, like, okay, I've thought of everything possible that could present itself as a hiccup. Something's going to come up that you didn't plan for. It's the way that life works, right? All of a sudden you're just walking along and here comes something from the side and you're like, what was that? So when those things happen, just be prepared for them. Know that there are things out there that can happen that, despite the most thorough planning in the world, they're going to happen and they're going to be unexpected. And just have a plan in place to where you kind of have in your back pocket, like when that stuff comes up that I don't expect, then this is how I'm going to adjust. And it could be simply like, all of a sudden, let's say you get like you're dealing with fitness, and all of a sudden, like you sprain your ankle and your walking is out. Okay, well, that was unexpected, but how are you going to deal with that? Is it you can't walk, but you can maybe ride a bike? Or is it you can't go for a walk, but you can swim? Um, or is it something to where you need to kind of take your legs out of it? Okay, then maybe you focus on other parts of your body and doing something like that. But just know that those things are going to be out there. The other important thing with these roadblocks, as we've called them, is do not maximize how big that roadblock is. And by that, I mean, don't take a little thing and blow it up into this 10-foot wall. Sometimes a roadblock is simply just a pebble. It could be just a nuisance or something that you can easily walk over, walk past, and not even give it a second thought. When you have that mindset of, I'm going to do this, I've got a great plan, I'm feeling better, I'm doing good, that's where those walls, those 10-foot walls, they start to tend to shrink, and they become more manageable, they become easier to navigate, and your course corrections become less drastic, and they just become like small little adjustments along the way. Maybe you're out and walking, and they've got part of the sidewalk that's just torn up because it's under construction. Okay, well, that is not a big deal. You could look at it and say, well, I got to go back now. That's not the right attitude. Or you can look at it and say, hey, cool, I get to find a different way around, or I get to see a different part of my neighborhood or this area that I'm in or whatever. I get to see a different part of it than I thought I ever would. And that's looking for the positive in it and not trying to create this, oh my God, moment out of something that's pretty insignificant. The same thing can go with if your wealth or your relationships. Stuff happens in relationships, and let's say you've had a dinner planned and everything was all there, and then either you or your significant other, they have a meeting that gets called that's going to adjust that plan, or a kid gets sick, and you're like, well, we've got to either stay home or we got to find an alternative. As long as you're looking for positive outcome alternatives and not saying, well, we tried and we'll wait till the next one, but you actually look for a way to still spend the time and still continue building the relationship that you've started and had success, and you're starting to feel better and better. That's when you get to that point to where it's like, when stuff like that comes up, it becomes an opportunity to be like, hey, you know what, instead of date night tonight because Jimmy doesn't feel good, why don't we have game night at home, and we'll include everybody? Or, the neighbors we're having people over that we initially canceled on. Let's see if that's still open. We can go over there. Or whatever ultimately it is. Is there a babysitter, an older family member, or uncle or something that can come that can be in your stead and help out with your plan? So if you're always looking for the positives and that, way to make it work, and not looking for ways that it can't work, that's the biggest difference between truly pushing forward and living that life that you want and getting those things that you want in health, wealth, relationships, um, than anything else. Because when you start to look for those positives, you're going to find more and more opportunities out there than you're ever going to find kind of, pitfalls or downfalls or anything like that. Okay. So, along those lines, guys, again, if you want more help, you want my help, our help to be able to help go through this and navigate this in a lot more detail, deal a little bit more with your goals and your aspirations individually and specifically. We do have programs available. Just go here, go.project9life.com. It'll set up a call with us, and we'll just talk for a few minutes and see kind of what your goal is and what's prevented you, and kind of ask some of these questions, and figure out if we're the right fit for each other and get you guys going. So now we've covered what. So covered what your goal is. We've covered your why, which is the biggest part of it, because that truly digs into why all this is important. Right now, we're dealing with the why not, which is looking out ahead or looking in the past and saying, why haven't I done anything up until this point? And now that I've made this decision, what could be out in front of me? Because let's face it, people make decisions for one of two reasons. Either the promise of what is available in the future is so great that they ultimately say, yeah, I have to go get that. But more likely, it's that the pain of doing the same old, living the status quo, living in Groundhog's Day, seeing everyone else making progress, or looking different, feeling different, acting different, things like that. That pain gets to a point to where it hurts so bad that you have to do something. So hopefully you're not in that second camp as much. Hopefully you would have done something before this to move away from that. But let's not just move away from the pain, and keep that distance. Let's just really make distance, right? Forget your pain. You're on a new path. You're moving forward. You're doing everything that you possibly can to achieve as much as you possibly can to the greatest of your potential, in health, wealth, relationships, whatever your goals ultimately are. But it's kind of like they say, a lot of times they'll pay workers just enough so that they'll work hard enough to keep from getting fired. That's not exactly what we're looking for, because your inspiration should drive you to want more than just not to get fired, but towards greater and bigger and loftier things in your life, in your family's life, your both extended and immediate family, and it is going to have an impact on everything. The same thing that we've talked about with your goals, and especially with the why, is when you start to identify these, okay, why haven't I done this, or what could come up, and involve the people most impacted by it, by what your goal is. If it's a significant other, if it's your kids, whatever, and ask them to be honest with you. Like, hey, why haven't I been able to, you know, get fit in the past? Or you've heard me come home so many nights in a row complaining about, my job, my boss, my work, my workload, my pay. Why, like, why haven't I made a different choice to do something different, to do more, to um, adjust to not have to come home and have those same things? If it's your relationships, it's just, what led to you and your spouse, like, drifting apart and not feeling the same way on day one of year 8 as you did on the first day that you met, the day you got married, stuff like that. Because they might have different ideas than you have in terms of just, well, this is what I feel. I felt that, you started, we always talk about your job, and, um, I hear all this stuff and I don't want to burden you with my feelings. Well, okay, that's, then at least you have that open and honest discussion as far as your partner's point of view as to what they're feeling and why your relationship is in the current state that it's in versus the way that it was years ago, months ago, whatever ultimately that is. Same thing with your kids. Um, if your goal is to establish a better relationship with your children, um, just sit them down and ask them, like, hey, again, I mean, I'll play the part. It's dad. Like, what's going on? Like, why don't we talk? Why is it okay that we're in a position to where typically the most I get out of you is 2 sentences and then a bye as you're walking out the door. And have your kids be honest with you and be honest with them as well. Um, and fall on your sword a little bit and say, hey, look, I haven't done the best job of maintaining that open line of communication or been proactive with asking more about stuff. And sadly enough, in today's day and age with teenagers, and I've got 2 of my own, it's typically easier to text them or something like that than it is to talk to them. But you still have to take that. You have to take that step, and you have to establish a new routine, a new normal for. Yeah, I do want to know what's going on in your life, and I do want to be involved, and I do want to know who your friends are. Not because I'm checking up on you, but I just want to know who you're hanging out with, and what they're all about, and maybe meet their parents, and it becomes what do they say? It's takes a village to raise a kid. Well, if if you don't know the villagers, or the kids that are directly, or the other kids and families and situations that are directly impacting how your kid is coming up, well, then you're letting the village raise your kid and you're kind of on the sidelines. So just open that line of communication with them to be open and honest. Like, I told you, I'm telling you, and I've told you, this is the path, this is our goal, as I want our relationship to improve. I'm going to do everything that I can, but I want your help and input on what has changed or what has impacted it that has caused us to not talk that much or to have very kind of superficial conversations. um, and this will probably be a little bit of a battle because if they're teenagers, especially, they'll just be like, well, I've got my friends and I've got my life and everything is fine. And I don't want to hang out with you and, whatever. And that's fine. If you think back, I mean, we were all kids too, and we probably said the exact same thing to our parents, but, just show that you're putting in the effort, and deal with it as a roadblock, it's a obstacle that is preventing what ultimately your goal is, which is establishing that better relationship with your kids and being more involved in their lives. And by that, I mean with your entire family as well, significant other, and everyone. And this is one that's going to always come up depending on the age of the kids, is getting through to them that you do want to be part of their life, not for, to check up on them, but you just want to know, like, are they doing okay? What are they interested in? How can you help? What are some things that they're dealing with? And just tell them flat out, like, look, all the stuff that you're going through, I've gone through. Your grandparents, they went through. Yeah, it's been a different time and, different distractions and everything like that. But we're all human beings. All kids go through the same basic stuff, just in a different kind of way. But I just want to know, like, what interests do you have? What do you want to do? Like, if they're 13, 14, they don't maybe know yet, or they have an idea, but that could change them drastically. They start to get closer to college age. 17, my son is 17, so he'll be in college next year. But we've talked about, like, okay, what do you want to do? How do you think is best to go about that? What assistance can I provide to help you get ultimately to where you want to go, knowing that over the course of 4 years or whatever it is in college, this could change. You could take a class on archaeology and all of a sudden, now you want to go to, Egypt and, traipse around by the pyramids and everything like that and be an archaeologist. Okay, great. But, what assistance can I provide? And how can I support your goals the way that you're helping me support my goals? And it's mutually beneficial. And if you put it in that aspect, that by them opening up, it's actually helping you and you're helping them as part of that. So everyone's kind of getting into a better spot, and it doesn't become the roadblock of my kids only text and, they get home and they shut their door, or, when they do come home, they basically come home, say goodnight and go to bed because it's later at night and they've got school early, or, it's summer and they're not out doing whatever. And just come up with a game plan together as to, hey guys, this is what I see that could prevent us from establishing a better relationship. How do you think we should handle this? How do you think we should handle this? These are the thoughts that I have on how we can handle it. And whether it's like you have a set night every week that, we're going to have a family dinner this night every single week, and we're going to eat, and then we're going to have game night. Okay. That starts that process. And then take their input as well and figure out, like, what are they willing to do? What do they want to do? And let's be honest, they're kids. They don't want to do any of it, to start off with. But the more that you are insistent on bettering the relationship and showing some vulnerability that, you're wanting to share with them. Maybe if you do have one of those days, those rough days where X, Y, and Z happens, instead of coming home and just like, checking out and kind of just, either talking to your spouse or something like that, maybe you just go home and tell your kids, hey, I had a rough day and this is why. And this is why I'm telling you, because you're going to have rough days. And this is how I've chosen to handle it. How would you have handled the same situation? Because the more and more you do that, trust me, the more and more they will get involved in it, and almost to the too much of an extent where they start offering opinions when they're not necessarily asked for, but they will become their own people. And by you doing this, not only are you improving your life, their lives, your relationship, but you're also telling your kids that when they have kids, this is norm. This is the normal that you expect, and they'll do it. Kids, they repeat a lot of what their parents, how they act and what they say and how they behave and things like that. So if that's ultimately kind of what your goal is, don't look at it as an impediment that your kids are teenagers and they're always on their phone and they're always busy and they're always gone. Look at it as an opportunity to take some time and get more involved in their life. God, I know my kids, they could fix my computer better than I ever could. And it's just because that's how they've grown up, is exposure to technology. And, you could probably learn some stuff. I know I have, like what different things they're into and what's in anymore and what's out and how are you using this. And, it gives you an opportunity to put your individual stamp into there, like don't talk to strangers online, especially don't accept friend requests from people that you don't know, and on and on and on. And I'm telling you this because I've seen it in a different way. It used to be like phone calls and mail, but those people are out there. And as much as you like to believe the good in people, they're not always there for your best interests. So let your kids especially, but let them learn from mistakes that you've made or that we've made in a certain age group, so that they don't repeat those same things. And that's just part of this single one roadblock, that my kids are technology bound and you want to establish a better relationship. Well, the first step is just starting to talk to them and open a dialogue, and give before you ever expect to get. Go into it and just be like, hey, I'm going to share something with you guys, and this is something that whatever you can say. I've only told a few people, or it's a little known fact, or your grandparents, they used to say this to me and they told me that I would say the same thing to you, and I said I never would, but here I am sitting here and I'm telling you exactly what grandparents said that I was going to tell you anyway. So that just look at those things as opportunities, not necessarily as roadblocks, because you might be surprised. It might lead you not just around kind of the impediment that you foresaw or that stuck its head out, but it might actually open your eyes to actually, this was my goal and this was my why, and I still have my why, but now this is ultimately my goal. And if you're on the lookout for those opportunities, trust me, they will present themselves more often than you can imagine. There's opportunities everywhere, if you're on the lookout for them and you're willing to accept them. All right, so what, why, and why not, right? We've established those three, and then in the next episode, which will be Thursday at 7 Mountain Time, we'll talk more about what's next. So we'll go a lot deeper into how you know when you're ready for the next step, how you know when something presents itself and you're ready, because you've established a new norm with your current goal, regardless of what it is, and it's become habit, and it's not what you're doing anymore. It becomes who you are, and then being on the lookout for, okay, you're going to want more. And so you might as well start to identify those things earlier in the process rather than waking up one day and being like, God, I achieved my biggest goal. Oh crap, what's next? I don't know. Okay. So an important part of all of that is knowing what success looks like to you. You and I and everyone else out there, we could all have the same goal, right? We want to get fit. But my idea of fitness, your idea of fitness, and a marathon runner's idea of fitness, they're going to be completely different. So you have to know and be comfortable with, I will know that I have done what I've set out to do when I do X, or when I achieve X, or when I feel like X. It doesn't have to be a numeric thing. It can just be like, I know I've achieved success because I feel better. I'm getting compliments more. This is a part of what I do every single day. It's who I am. I'm up at 6 o'clock and I'm, out for an hour riding the bike or running or at the gym or, whatever ultimately it is. Or if it's a wealth thing, you just need to know what that looks like. Is your idea of wealth when your passive income exceeds your monthly, job income? Is it when you can go on vacation and not have to worry about saving for it because you've just got the money and you know where it's there and you can just go when you want to go for how long you want to go? Is it, it manifests itself into whatever, vacation, or ultimately, some car that you wanted or something like that. But have the idea of what success for you individually actually means, because it is going to be different. It's when I set out, like, for me to get fit, like my goal had nothing to do with a number on the scale. It had nothing to do with running a certain distance or lifting a certain weight or doing anything like that. My idea of success was just get to the point to where I felt comfortable in my own skin and I felt better. And as soon as I established it as a habit, then it started to manifest itself into, okay, well, I'm fit, but I want to go a little bit more. So it went from 3 miles to 4 miles. And then it was, okay, I want to get a little bit more fit. And it went from 4 to 5. And then I ended up not at the end, but a couple summers ago, I ran a 10K at Red Rocks. And if you've ever been to Colorado and Red Rocks, that was the wrong race for me to pick for the first one because there is nothing flat about that place. I didn't realize that 10K could be all uphill, um, but I ran it and I felt better about doing it. And it took a lot of time. But I felt great at the end. Like I accomplished something that I had never done before in life. I hadn't run a 10K. I hadn't run track since like seventh or eighth grade. I played baseball and football and stuff like that, but that's a different level of fitness. So once you establish it, like know what your success is, like know. And the reason is twofold. One, so that you have that kind of that carrot at the end. And two, and probably most importantly, is when you get there, man, celebrate it. Everyone that was involved in it, people that you told, your friends, your family, loved ones, whatever, celebrate the fact that, hey, I got X, back 6 months ago, back 9 months ago, I started on this journey to, whatever, get fit, establish a better relationship with you guys. And we've got it. Like, I feel really good about this. We've succeeded in this, and have a celebration. You should, you deserve it. You put all of the work and all the effort in, and you deserve that time to be able to say, hey, it was a lot of work. There was some things that had to be dealt with along the way, but we made it. Like, we got to the end. And that's also a great time to be like, all right, this is what we're doing next. And then you just restart it over. And you may have already started on the path, and been kind of going that way. But maybe this is a great time to be like, involve those people again and be like, hey, my goal was to get fit, and I've achieved like what I feel like. I go out every single day, and Jimmy and Julie, you guys help. Your mom helps, and you held me accountable, and it's become a new way that I'm living and a new way that we're living. Next goal is I want to be able to, acquire the wealth and get the income to a point where we can take a week vacation every single summer and go to some place that's not in the United States, whatever ultimately that goal is. It could be just to go to a beach, if your kids hadn't seen one, or to come to Denver and see the Rocky Mountains, and spend some time kind of camping or, skiing or doing whatever ultimately up there. So know what your success looks like. It's important, and you should celebrate it because depending on what ultimately your goal was, it could be, months or, a year or so in the making. And the fact that you stayed disciplined and diligent, focused on your why, and you haven't stopped. You've overcome a lot of stuff. You've sidestepped a lot of stuff. You've just blown through stuff. It becomes addictive, right? Like you're going to get to a point to where it's like you're going to wake up every morning and you'll be like, okay, yeah, like I want more of this feeling, because you're feeling that progress. You feel that you're changing. You feel that you're making strides. You feel that you just feel better, and you get addicted to that feeling. And that's why it's important to establish another goal. And you just keep repeating and repeating, not the same goal, but the same process of establish what your goal is, go through your whys, look at the why nots, and then establish a new what's next and make sure that you celebrate. So, the biggest part with all this, guys, is I know we talked a lot about like dates and stuff like that. Do not wait for the new year. Don't wait for a birthday. Don't wait for it to be summer. Don't wait for the fall. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. So put your stick in the ground, go plant your tree, and get started today. So thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you guys next Thursday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Have a good one.